Greetings, friends, and welcome to another ministry of the Victory Hour here on YouTube. This ministry is brought to you by the Lord's people at Clayville Assembly in Foster, Rhode Island. My name is Jim Gallagher. I'm the pastor at Clayville Assembly. If you want to contact me, you can email me, info@clayvilleassembly.com. info@clayvilleassembly.com. Or you can write to me, the Victory Hour, P.O. Box 222, Foster, Rhode Island, 02825. Or you can mail it to Clayville Assembly and still put the same address, P.O. Box 222, Foster, Rhode Island, 02825. And I'd be happy to correspond with you if you have any questions or concerns, or you just need prayer, spiritual counsel, whatever it is you want to talk about, but we're available. And we do meet on Sundays and the Lord's Day, 10 o'clock in the morning. And our evening service is at 6 o'clock. And if you come to the service and ask to talk to me after, I'll be more than happy to oblige you. We're at 7 Plainfield Pike in Foster, Rhode Island. All right, so we're in a series going through some of the errors of dispensationalism, and we're taking the subject one at a time to refute the position held by dispensationalism. Now, just to remind you, a dispensationalist is someone who, for instance, just on identifying markers, they believe in a secret rapture, 7-year tribulation, 1,000-year millennium. If you believe in a 7-year tribulation, now it doesn't really matter if you're pre-tribulational, mid-tribulational, or post-tribulational. But if your tribulation is 7 years long and you're taking that from Daniel 9, you are a dispensationalist. There's no sense in splitting hairs with the pre, mid, and post-trib. It's chicken feed differences. It's not fundamental, not from my viewpoint. It's just details on the same basic structure of bad doctrine. And that doctrine of dispensationalism is built and structured over a postponed kingdom. So this is the next subject I want to get into. We were talking at length about hermeneutics, and we've discovered that the hermeneutics employed, particularly the prophetic hermeneutics employed by the dispensationalists, do not match what the scriptures say should be the biblical hermeneutic when it comes to the prophetic word. Now, we've moved on from that, and then we talked about Mystery Babylon. That's another problem with dispensationalism. They deny that Mystery Babylon is Old Covenant Jerusalem. But in a recent episode, in just one taping, we completely demolished the idea that Mystery Babylon is Rome. Hey, it's one thing to say Mystery Babylon is from which the beast arrives. Okay, that's one thing. The beast, Rome, I'm not arguing that point. But I'm saying Mystery Babylon is Jerusalem. It's impossible for Mystery Babylon to be Rome. Rome is the beast. Rome has the stench of anti-Christianity in it. However, Mystery Babylon, in its brand of anti-Christianity, is Jerusalem without question. However, we're moving on to a new subject. And this strikes, the subject I'm taking on now, goes to the very heart and soul of dispensationalism. We can argue points like Mystery Babylon. In one sense, it's a minor point, but it's irrefutable, and it destroys their whole paradigm, so it's important in that sense. But actually, the most fundamental subject I could bring up to you in regards to dispensational eschatology is their concept of a postponed kingdom. And I'm here in this little mini-series that we'll be engaging in now. I'm here to refute the era of dispensationalism, wherein they claim that the kingdom of Christ was postponed. Now, I need to explain that, because maybe a lot of people don't understand that. And even people that attend dispensational churches at times, sometimes they don't even understand their own dispensationalism, and they don't even know anything about a postponed kingdom. Because they may have embraced, that church may have embraced the net byproduct of that eschatological revolution of a postponed kingdom. But those ministers aren't particularly oriented to eschatology and prophecy. So they don't ever hardly talk about it, and the people are kind of ignorant of what they believe. Now, they embrace the net result of the belief of that postponed kingdom, but they don't know their own mechanics. So it's necessary that I explain this for everybody listening. All right. So here's the postponed kingdom as it is imagined by the dispensational people, the pre-trib rapture people, the mid-trib rapture, the post-trib rapture, those people, okay? And that represents a massive swath of Christianity in our day, no doubt about it. It's probably the majority of American evangelicalism and fundamentalism, as well as the majority view in the Pentecostal or charismatic churches. Some form of dispensationalism, which in its essence is structured over this concept of a postponed kingdom, which is not biblical. And that's what this series is about. Now, let me try to explain to you their view of the postponed kingdom. What they say is this. Now, I could read to you, I've got all sorts of sources I could read from. I don't want to take the time to read all these different guys saying the same thing. Well, the truth is, the average dispensationalist, you ought to know this. So I'm not going to take a lot of time to prove that this is what they say. What I'm about to tell you, as far as their position is concerned, is not controversial. The position might be controversial, but that this is their position is not controversial at all. But I feel obligated to explain it. So, in the mind of the dispensationalists, their view is that Jesus came into this world to establish a kingdom. God made a promise to David that of the fruit of David's loins, according to the flesh, he would raise up David's seed to sit on David's throne and establish an everlasting and eternal kingdom that has no end. And that original promise of that Davidic kingdom you will find in 2 Samuel chapter 7, verses 12 and on. So go read 2 Samuel chapter 7, verses 12 and on, and you'll see that original promise of the Messianic kingdom as that promise was delivered unto David. David's seed would come from David's loins, sit on David's throne, and establish an everlasting, eternal kingdom, which is the kingdom of Messiah. The whole concept of Messiah is pointing to that particular seed of David who would rise up and sit on David's throne forever. This is the Messiah's role. This is his calling. The Messiah is the king of the everlasting Davidic kingdom. By anybody's interpretation, that's what Messiah is. So, when we say that Jesus is the Messiah, we're saying he is the one to sit on David's throne and establish an everlasting and eternal kingdom. All right, so the dispensationalists tell us that Christ came 2,000 years ago, born of Mary, to establish that kingdom. And I don't disagree with them. He came 2,000 years ago to establish that kingdom. Yes, that's true. Let me show you a passage of Scripture that we can, generally agree on. For instance, let me read from Luke chapter 1, starting at verse 26. And in the 6th month, the angel Gabriel was sent from God unto a city of Galilee named Nazareth, to a virgin espoused to a man whose name was Joseph, of the house of David. That is, the house of David, the lineage of the kings of David. Not his other sons, but the line of the kings. The royal house of David, the kingly house of David, the house that Messiah will one day govern over forever. Okay? And the angel said unto her, and said, Hail, thou art highly favored. The Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou among women. And when she saw him, she was troubled at his saying, and cast in her mind what manner of salutation this should be. And the angel said unto her, Fear not, Mary, for thou hast found favor with God. And behold, thou shalt conceive in thy womb, and bring forth a son. And thou shalt call his name Jesus. He shall be great. Now, this is verse 32. This is important. He shall be great, and shall be called the Son of the Highest, Son of God. And the Lord God shall give unto him the throne of his father David. And he shall reign over the house of Jacob forever. And of his kingdom there shall be no end. All right, now, this promise given to Mary by the angel Gabriel is a promise of the Messiah to come as that promise was given in 2 Samuel chapter 7, verses 12 and on. And Mary is being told by Gabriel, you are going to give birth to a son. His name shall be called Jesus, and he is the Messiah. He is the one to sit on David's throne. You will give birth to the Messiah, that he might come and establish that everlasting, eternal, messianic kingdom. Now, the dispensationalists would say, that's true, Pastor Gallagher. All right. And I agree. It is true. Now, we've got different conceptions of what that kingdom is, but we are in agreement that the promise given to Mary is that she's giving birth to the Messiah so that he can sit on David's throne and establish that kingdom forever. So, the dispensationalists, for instance, would point to this passage and say, yes, Jesus came to establish that kingdom. And I agree with them. He did come to establish the Messianic kingdom 2,000 years ago when he was born of Mary. No doubt about it. All right, so the dispensationalists tell us, so Christ came to establish the Messianic kingdom. That's why he came to this earth. I agree. However, the dispensationalists say, not to me, they say, however, yes, he came to establish that kingdom. However, no, there is no however. Oh, but dispensationalism says there is a however. The dispensationalists say that kingdom never came. And it still hasn't come yet, 2,000 years later. Well, I thought Jesus came to this earth and was born of Mary so that he could establish that kingdom on earth. Yes, that's right. Dispensationalism says he never did it. Oh, they tell us he will one day, but he never did it. And 2,000 years later, he still hasn't done it. I'm saying that's utterly wrong. It came into being that very kingdom that he came to establish. This is a stark distinction between historic Christianity and the modern revolution that we call dispensationalism. They say the kingdom did not come in the first century, although they say he came in the first century to bring it then. You say, well, what do the dispensationalists say happened to it? Well, okay, here we go. They tell us that Jesus and his disciples were preaching that kingdom to the Jewish people, but that the Jewish people did not believe that Jesus was the Messiah. The Jewish people did not want to have anything to do with a kingdom of which Jesus would rule. They denied that Jesus was the Christ. They denied that Jesus was the Messiah. They were rejecting his kingdom. Although he was preaching it to them, they tell us, they were rejecting it. So at a certain point, the Lord got fed up. And he said, you know what? I came to bring this kingdom, to give it to you in fulfillment of the promises given to the Father. But because of your rebellion and because of your unbelief, I'm not going to do it. I'm going to postpone that kingdom. And it's going to be thrown out way into the future, over 2,000 years away. And so now I'm going to change my emphasis and my message. No longer am I offering to the Jewish people the kingdom. I withdraw that offer. And now what I'm going to do, and you'll have to wait for Paul to come around to explain this to you, but I'm going to establish a mystery church age. And the church will be born at Pentecost, and that will replace Israel while Israel's on ice and on hold. And the kingdom of Messiah that Christ came to bring to the Jewish people 2,000 years ago has been postponed, been replaced by the church. That's dispensationalism's replacement theology. But they say the church will be raptured someday in the future. The church will leave the earth, and the Jews will go through a 7-year tribulation, and then Christ will return. And when he returns, he establishes that 1,000-year messianic, eternal, everlasting Davidic kingdom, and Jesus will finally bring to pass that which he tried to bring to pass in the first century, but because the Jews rejected him, he withdrew the offer and postponed the kingdom. So at the second coming of Christ, still in our future, he will establish that after the 7-year tribulation. That 1,000-year millennium, although the kingdom's supposed to be forever, but they say it's a 1,000-year millennium. Well, let them work out those details and contradictions, but that's their doctrine. The essence of everything that dispensationalism is built on is that concept that Christ came to give the kingdom to Israel. He would sit on David's throne as the Messiah and rule that everlasting kingdom. That's why he came. But they rejected him, so he postponed it. And 2,000 years later, we're still in that mystery church age program, which is altogether different and separate from the Messianic kingdom. And he'll finally bring back that Messianic kingdom, or bring it to fruition for the first time at his second coming when he establishes the 1,000-year millennium. Now, that's the postponed kingdom theory of dispensationalism. It is so far off the mark, and it wreaks havoc on the doctrines of the kingdom, even of the gospel, and of all of eschatology. Everything is structured in dispensationalism over that concept of a postponed kingdom. And again, I could multiply dispensationalists after dispensationalists after dispensationalists who will tell you that what I just described to you is what they believe. They might want to say it in slightly different terminology, but they'll tell you the exact same bare-bone facts that I just gave you. Jesus came to bring that Messianic kingdom 2,000 years ago. The Jews rejected it and rejected him, so he postponed it, and he established a church age instead, which we are still in. Kingdom hasn't arrived. That's wrong. That's false doctrine. It's utterly contrary to everything the Bible reveals about the Messianic kingdom. And that's the purpose of this little subset series of the errors of dispensationalism. We're talking about the errors of dispensationalism. And one of the most fundamental errors is their postponed kingdom theory. And I want to refute it. And I'm going to start today. Now, I only have, little more than 10 minutes left, but we'll do what we can do. So I'll tell you what, let's take a little journey, because the dispensationalists love this. Let's take a journey back to Daniel chapter 9, okay? So let's go to Daniel chapter 9, because for them, Daniel 9 is everything, which only to me reveals the amateurish nature of their exegesis of the whole principle of the Messianic kingdom. I shouldn't say the exegesis, but their worldview of the Messianic kingdom reveals its immature nature by having such a strong focus on Daniel 9. Let me show you what I mean. Daniel chapter 9, and starting at verse 24. Now, this is a prophecy about Messiah is going to come, and he will establish his kingdom, but they're going to murder the Messiah first. Let's read it. Daniel 9, and by the way, I'm not going into any details on Daniel 9 now. That's like, I'm going to, if I include in details Daniel 9, we'll save that for the very end of this series on the postponed kingdom era of dispensationalism. It doesn't deserve an upfront discussion because it's too involved with too many variables, and we have to go digging deep, and people say, okay, what's all this technical stuff about? We don't even need to get technical. I can just prove it without doing that. But I will go here. I'll go here, but it's going to be laughed because that's where it should be, laughed. I know they don't think so, but maybe by the time you're done with this series, you'll understand what I mean. However, I'm going to deal with it in a very broad way up front because they want me to say something. So let me do that. All right, Daniel 9, starting at verse 24. 70 weeks are determined upon thy people and upon thy holy city. Now, just let me say this. When it says 70 weeks, without getting into the details, I'm keeping it very generic, and they won't disagree with me. That 70 weeks is referring to 77s. And it's 77s of years. 70 times 7, 490 years. This is a prophecy about a 490-year period. They will agree with me on that. So I'm not going to go and prove that when we're all in agreement on it anyway. I could explain that sometime. We get into the details of Daniel 9, but there's no controversy here. It's a 490-year period being prophesied. 77s. 70, that word sevens, it's 77s of years. Let's just put it that way. They agree. So this is a prophecy about something that's going to happen within the time frame of 490 years. We're all in agreement. Okay. So 70 weeks or 490 years are determined upon thy people, Jewish nation, and upon thy holy city, Jerusalem, to finish the transgression, to make an end of sins, to make reconciliation for iniquity, and to bring in everlasting righteousness, and to seal up the vision and prophecy, and to anoint the most holy. So 77s or 490 years are determined upon the children of Israel and the city of Jerusalem to finish the transgression, make an end of sins, make reconciliation for iniquity, bring in everlasting righteousness, seal up the vision and prophecy, and anoint the most holy. Those 6 things are going to happen within the time frame of this 490-year period. Okay? Know therefore and understand, know therefore and understand that from the going forth of the commandment to restore and to build Jerusalem, what's that a reference to? Well, Israel had gone into Babylonian captivity. And the temple was destroyed. Right? And there would be a commandment given while they were in Babylonian captivity to go back to the land and rebuild your temple. Whether you think that commandment ultimately is referencing Darius, Cyrus, or Artaxerxes, 3 consecutive kings, but it doesn't matter. We don't have to get into the weeds of that detail, not for what we're doing here. So while they're in Babylonian captivity, the kings of Babylon, actually all 3 of them did, say to the Jewish people, go back, you can leave. We took you captives, but you can leave now and go back and build your city. If you need some help, yeah, we got some money in our wallet. And that's pretty much what happened, right? So from the time of that commandment, that's the beginning of the prophetic time clock of the 490 years. Okay? Know therefore and understand from the going forth of the commandment to restore and to build Jerusalem unto the Messiah, the Prince. So from the time that they were told they could go back into Jerusalem and rebuild the temple and the city, up until the time of Messiah, from being told they could go back from Babylon to the time of Messiah, shall be 7 weeks and 62 weeks. 49, 7 weeks, plus 62 weeks. So we're talking 483 years. The street shall be built again, and the wall even in troublous times, which, you'll find that out to be true in Ezra and Nehemiah. It was rebuilt in troublous times. And after 62 weeks shall Messiah be cut off, crucified. But not for himself, right? He died for the sins of his people. And the people of the prince that shall come shall destroy the city. This is referring. Now, I would say this is referring to Titus and the Roman armies. They say this is referring to a future Antichrist. That's still in our future. That's the prince, they say. The people of the prince that shall come shall destroy the city and the sanctuary, and the end thereof shall be with a flood, and unto the end of the war desolations are determined. And he shall confirm the covenant with many for 1 week. Well, I won't get into the distinctions here. And in the midst of the week he shall cause the sacrifice and oblation to cease, and for the overspreading of abominations he shall make it desolate, even until the consummation, and that determined shall be poured upon the desolate. Now, I know there's a lot there, but I want to get a simple thought out of here that we can all agree on, whether you're dispensational or not. This prince is going to come and destroy the temple and the city. I'm saying that was fulfilled in Titus and the Roman armies in 70 AD. They're saying, oh, no, that's still in our future, at a future 7-year tribulation, where a future Antichrist comes and destroys the rebuilt third temple. That's their view. Now, the strange thing is, they're saying that the abomination of desolation hasn't come yet. But I thought this prophecy was about things that were to transpire in 490 years. Well, it is. So what they do is they take the last 7 years of the 490-year prophesied event, and they remove it from the first 483 years, and they throw it out into the future, completely severing it from its original context. And we're still waiting for those last 7 years to tick off. And that'll happen at the rapture of the church. That's what they say. They have separated the 490 years into two pieces, 483 years, and then there's a massive gap, and that's the church age, we're told. And then somewhere in our future, the last 7 years of those 490 years will begin to be fulfilled. Now, you talk about, they say they use a literal hermeneutic when it comes to prophecy. What happened to the 490 years? You've hacked it up and thrown in an imaginary 2,000 plus and counting years in between. But wait a minute. There's something else I want you to see real simple because I only got a couple minutes left. Go to Matthew 24. Now, in the Olivet Discourse, which they're all about the Olivet Discourse, right? This is about the second coming. And in the Olivet Discourse, we're told, and I agree, he is talking about his parousia coming. Verse 14, and this gospel of the kingdom shall be preached in all the world for a witness unto all nations, and then shall the end come. Now, see, they say this is the future second coming. When ye therefore shall see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet, in Daniel chapter 9, stand in the holy place. When you see that abomination of desolation, stand in the holy place. Whoso readeth, let him understand. Then let them which are in Judea flee into the mountains. Let him which is on the housetop not come down to take anything out of his house. Neither let him which is in the field return back to take his clothes. And woe unto them that are with child, and them that give suck in those days. But pray that your flight not be in the winter, neither in the Sabbath day. For then shall be great tribulation, such as was not since the beginning of the world to this time, nor ever shall be. Now, so this is the great tribulation leading up to the second coming of Christ. And this is when, the dispensationalists tell us, the abomination of desolation shows up. Now, here's the problem. Jesus, now I'm reading about this abomination of desolation in the Olivet Discourse from verse 14 to 21. If you go to verse 34, Jesus says this, verily I say unto you, this generation shall not pass till all these things be fulfilled. Well, wouldn't that include the prophecy Jesus quoted of the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet in Daniel chapter 9? It most certainly would. Wouldn't that mean that Daniel chapter 9 would have to have been fulfilled in the first century, in the generation to which Jesus was delivering this teaching? He said, this generation shall not pass till all these things be fulfilled. In Matthew 24:34. What things is he talking about? Well, everything he was talking about right up until verse 34. I believe that the abomination of desolation showed up in the first century in that generation that Jesus said it would. They don't. And they say they're Bible literalists. Well, who's believing the Bible now? Look, I'm out of time. We will develop this thought more. I know they've got their excuses and their explanations, but you're going to see how weak they are. Just give us a little time. But here's the opening volley. Do you believe Jesus? This generation will not pass till all these things be fulfilled. Do you believe, Daniel, that this prophecy is about something that would happen within 490 years? The dispensationalism, and it's true. But here we are, 2,490 years later, and it still hasn't come to pass. Did the prophet speak that which the Lord did not speak? Was Daniel wrong? I say no. Well, we'll talk about this more next time, but look, I'm out of time. I've got to go. Let me thank you for watching. This is Jim Gallagher reminding you, in the words of our blessed Lord and Savior, ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free.